and welcome to another edition of Nucleus Investment Insights. We are going to follow up on what we did last week. So last week we had a look at what would a Trump presidency mean, and this week we thought we'd do a follow up and talk about what would a non-Trump presidency mean. And it's also well worth updating on the changes that we had just this morning in terms of the Supreme Court decision, which was what we'd sort of foreshadowed last week. Was that was a 50-50 decision, and it has come down on the side of Trump. And so a big jump, I think, in terms of him, in terms of being able to avoid having to go through a trial. But we'll run through that in a minute. First, I'll welcome aboard David, Chief Strategist of the Nucleus Funds and MB Funds. Welcome, David.
Nice, thank you, Damien, and hope you're enjoying my bike maintenance shop.
Right. Excellent. So just a reminder that this is general information for people. So it's hasn't been prepared for you, and it's and that you should be if you do need personal advice, then you can book a call in, and we can help you with that at Nucleus Wealth. Without any further ado, though, I'll sort of jump into the thoughts for today. So not a lot of slides, and we're just going to run it relatively quickly. But we want to talk about what happens if we get a Trump win, what happens if we get a Biden win and a split House and Senate, Biden win where they get the House and the Senate, and then what are the alternatives in terms of different candidates that are being offered and what that would mean. But before we do that, I just sort of run quickly through these Trump cases, just so what's been happening over the last week, and just a quick recap for anyone who didn't see the podcast from last week. So there's a number of different cases going on at the moment. We've got these civil cases. Now, they're all going to get caught up in appeals. There's not a lot of effect, I don't think, they're going to have on the election beyond what they've already had. Maybe Trump's going to get forced to sell some properties, and that's probably just going to rile up his supporters even more and create claims of whatever there. But I think it looks as if that probably won't be the case, and there's a few things stayed, so he'll probably get loans to cover what he needs to put on for that. The Stormy Daniels porn star hush money case, look, that's going to be over by June, I would think, quite possibly by mid-May. There's no presidential immunity on this one, so that's sort of pretty much a done deal. I think in a way that's, as we spoke about last time, look, it's a case that's out there. If you don't believe Trump did it, or you don't care, this seems like more of a technicality. To bit like, I think the description from a few is sort of getting Al Capone on tax evasion charges. It's probably not going to really move the needle. The classified documents case, look, they're just running out the clock on that one. Unless you get a change of judge, it's probably not going to go anywhere before the election. The Georgia election interference case, that's a state election interference case. That's ongoing. That's not going to be over before the election. That's getting dragged out a bit at the start of that. Regardless, that's a long case, that one. That's I think the only thing that could come to bear in terms of that is just that what you might see is that's televised, so maybe that affects, because you can see live pictures and on different news programs. But having said that, the left-wing news organisations are going to cut to the most favourable for them, and the right wing are going to cut selectively choose what to show anyway. So probably doesn't make as much difference. And the big one, the federal election interference case, so Supreme Court.
All Americans watch C-SPAN, don't they?
Yeah, that's right. The federal election case, that's the big one. So and that's the one where the Supreme Court came out today after a 2-week delay, basically saying that they are going to take the case and they're going to stay it. So what does that actually mean? That's the it means it's unlikely, and I'd probably even say it's highly unlikely that it makes it before the election. So just to sort of put it in perspective, Supreme Court was given the chance to take this, or they were urged to take it back in December, and they said no. They said they wanted it to go to the DC court, the state level appeals court first. It's been there. Then they could have easily decided to take the court case on. Might have taken them a day. They could have easily decided that 2 weeks ago, but they delayed and took 2 weeks. They've given now end of April for hearing. So again, more delay. It does seem as if they're going to try and run the clock out on this one. I guess if the Supreme Court wanted to, they could probably get it done within, given the dates they've given now. It could be a quick turnaround, from that end of April and have something out early May. So maybe you could say it to take 2 months. More likely it's going to take 3 or 4 months. Then you're going to have pre-trial motions and time for preparation once you get the Supreme Court decision. That's going to be another 2 to 3 months, and the case itself is going to take 3 to 4 months. So what does that mean? Well, if you hit every single lower bound of those, trials over by September, you've got a month of electioneering, and then early November you've got so you've got him guilty, and it's going to affect the election. More likely, though, all you need is one of those ones not to reach that, and you're not going to have a verdict by the time the election is. And quite possibly, if the Supreme Court takes their 4 months and then 3 months worth of pre-trial, maybe they won't even hold the case at all before the election. So given the appearance and I guess they tend not to want to interfere in elections, and this is obviously unprecedented. But there isn't actually law against it. It's more of a courtesy that's sort of been displayed in the past. So yeah. But I think the big message from all that is that the odds of him making it to the election without having to go through that real key one, the federal election interference case, is jumped significantly today with that decision. So, Dave, I don't know what your thoughts around that.
Well, it's quite unsettling. Like, we've had this procession of Jan 6 rioters go to jail, like hundreds or even thousands, for various felony charges of sedition, insurrection, treason type charges, as well as civil disorder and etc. And a lot of them, I don't know if it's most of them, but have sort of stood up in court and said, well, I only went there because Donald told me to.
Yeah.
And yet, here we are with the leader of the Jan 6 riot, on the verge of escaping prosecution. So, I find it very unsettling for the world's greatest democracy to have its institutions destabilized like this.
Yeah. Look, the thing is, if he is innocent and everything was perfect as he says, then you'd like to see that they have the court case and he gets to prove that, or if the prosecution's right, then they get to prove the case, and then the American people can vote on that. Whereas now it's just going to be he said, it's going to be he said, she said, and both parties can lie as much as they want.
Yes. So it's not a good outcome for democracy, for social cohesion in the US, and given the what look like fairly consistent delaying tactics by the Supreme Court, that really shakes faith in the absolute apogee of the US system here, and so it's quite unsettling to watch. Can't say much more than that. I just hope these institutions hold up and it gets done in time. But
don't like the odds.
No.
So these odds I'm about to show haven't been updated for the latest news from today, but they are from a few days ago. So basically, Trump #1, Biden, then Michelle Obama, Gavin Newsom, Nikki Haley, Kamala Harris, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Dean Phillips. So I think you can exclude Dean Phillips. I think Robert Kennedy Jr. I think until
You
until
put
we.
that on the screen,
Oh,
Damo?
I think I'm showing that.
Oh, I'm not getting it. Maybe
Right.
maybe
Uh,
the viewers are.
yeah, I think they are. So Kennedy Jr. A long shot. So the net effect though is that Donald Trump, just on betting markets, is about 50-50. Biden probably gets about 30%. Then Obama and Newsom probably make up another 15 between them, and then you have everyone else. So it's that's roughly what we're looking at. But I guess so. We'll start with what that's running through some of these other factors that we're talking about, and say looking at so what would happen if we get a Biden win and a split House and Senate. So Dave, across to you. So from a macro point of view and a stock point of view.
Well, I mean, a split House and Senate would stocks tend to like, because it generally results in spending stalemate. There doesn't seem to be, from what I can see, a particularly no great directions coming out of the Biden camp for a second term. So I would expect it to continue with its various supply chain repatriation policies, etc., and pretty strong fiscal spending based on what it did in the first term. Probably reined in a little if it's got a split in the House or Senate.
Well, maybe should we incorporate as well? If they do get the House and Senate, what's the?
Well, then definitely you would expect more fiscal.
Yeah.
And so I imagine that's good, for US growth. But let's recall our sort of view of the US over the next 5 years or so is already really bullish, with perhaps the exception of this year, and we get through this landing of whatever nature it takes. We sort of see this convergence of technological advancements coming together in a productivity super boom, AI, weight loss drugs being the two spearheads, but then autonomous vehicles and energy coming in behind that as well. And so whoever wins is going to be dealing with a pretty good economy, with really powerful business investment, disinflationary investment as well. So I don't think that any sort of iteration of Biden win overwhelms that, in terms of making it so inflationary that suddenly rates have to rise rather than fall, as is kind of priced into markets at the moment. So steady as she goes, I guess, are most of the Biden scenarios.
I mean, even in a sweep sense, it would seem to me that maybe there's some healthcare stuff that they would like to do.
Maybe student debt forgiveness.
Student debt, yep. So I guess that's a bit of a push for consumption.
And more of the sort of working against inequality type of policies that would be inflationary at the margin. But I guess my point is, if the AI and weight loss and other technological breakthroughs are as large as we think, then labour availability and supply chain issues are just going to disappear anyway. One thing you probably would get under Biden is more foreign labour as well, and less likely to clamp down on the border. So that would be disinflationary too. So I don't think a second term of Biden equals more inflation. It probably still means less.
Yeah.
But it would certainly mean, look, I think either candidate equals a strong US economy. And Biden's probably less inflationary than Trump, which we'll get to for other reasons.
Yeah, and I guess the other part is you would guess, and I'm not sure about this, but you'd guess that there's probably more a step towards more bipartisanship if Trump loses yet another election. At the moment, the sway he has over the party seems to be that he doesn't want to do a deal on anything that might benefit, the country or the Democrats in any way. Potentially that might lose some sway, but maybe though as well the takeover is complete and it's now
Well, I think
it's another illegitimate election, so they need to rail harder.
Well, I think if he loses another one, I mean, surely they have to go away and reform. Like, he couldn't take another tilt. I mean, maybe he could. Well, he would be. I think he's going to be what? Is he going to be 83?
Yes, I think so. I think
83 for this election. He's 83.
No. He's
79,
78 or 79. Yeah, something like that.
79, I think. So he would then be 83.
Going up to 87. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking. What you're talking as old as Biden?
Well, older than Biden, yeah. But exactly though. I guess that's the point. Is do you see Trump fading into the night? And I'd say probably not. My guess is that he'll rail harder. Now, does the rest of the Republican Party stand up and go, well, you've had 3 or 4 cracks at this, time to finish up, or has he completed the takeover and so actually you're just in for a gridlock? It's like, nope, we won't pass anything. We're going.
Yeah, well, it's hard to see Trump going away, unless he was shoved out. Yeah. And as you say, he's filling the place with his cronies. So, I mean, maybe it is a takeover, and the Republican Party just dies.
Yeah, well, or they just decide that's it. They're not going to pass it. I mean, this has already been, I think, the least productive House and Senate in history. Is that they take it to another level and they go, well, we're not going to pass anything. So, yeah. Anyway, so that's the big dangers, I guess, from that perspective. Talking about alternative candidates. So, let's just jump quickly to a quick message, and then we'll come back to that in a sec.
We'll be back with the investment insights very shortly. Nucleus Wealth is an active and passive investment manager. If you like what you're hearing and want some help with your investing, we can do it for you via our active portfolios. Our tactical and core portfolios use the insights shared in this podcast to construct and manage your investment. We blend tactical portfolios to offer our combinations of international shares, Australian shares, government bonds, and cash. We vary the asset allocation with the goal of protecting your capital in times of market uncertainty. We also have active international and Australian share portfolios. These are chosen using our quality and value investment philosophy. You can find out more at nucleuswealth.com. Now back to the show.
Right. So, so the next step then is saying, okay, what are your alternatives? So theoretically, there is a slim possibility still that Trump is convicted and maybe sentenced to jail, and that's enough for the Republicans then to flip to a different candidate. If that's the case, I guess there's probably a slight contention about whether Trump could somehow anoint somebody else that's more Trumpy. I think Nikki Haley's got the front runner. You'd say is the front runner status at the moment. If Nikki Haley, I guess your thoughts, David, around what that would mean for economies and macroeconomics.
Well, she's more a traditional conservative, isn't she? Like small government,
smaller deficits,
less
regulation,
etc. I mean, so at the margin, you would say more disinflationary, less,
but tax cuts as well. Yeah.
Yeah, but still some tax cuts, but a little bit less disinflationary, a little bit more budget repair, and so probably a lower US dollar.
Yeah, and I guess the question really comes down to whether she means it or not. I think there's certainly been cases in the past where in all countries, I think, where you have the fiscal conservatives, or the self-proclaimed fiscal conservatives say that they're going to run on this basis, but actually once they get in power, then it's tax cuts and keep spending.
Yeah, that's right.
And so
only conservatives.
Does she mean it or not? Is the big
The
question.
other guys are in.
Yeah, that's right. Because I think if you went down the path of if she really means what she says, and you cut back significantly on governments and on government spending, and you rained tax cuts on the wealthiest, then you're into a big disinflationary push, and a slowing economy and all these other factors. Add that to you probably then the Fed's at zero and racing, but trying to get inflation up with the AI boom and all these drugs, and no more money for poor people and no more government capex. But I'd guess that's not that likely of an outcome, as you said. So that's how you'd end up with a different one. Oh, sorry, anything else on Nikki Haley, Dave?
No.
Right. And then the other one is the other Democratic candidates. Now, from that chart, we saw that Michelle Obama was the most likely. Now, she's said that she's not interested, and I sort of feel like she's not lying. So I feel as if she was shoehorned into that role for whatever reason, I suspect, from my perspective, it feels as if she would be basically running whatever Biden's policies, with Biden's policy as advisors, or maybe it's Obama's old policy advisors. But
I don't know a lot about.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot about Michelle. Like, what's her career like, other than being obviously married to Obama?
Not much. Yeah. So, but it's her popularity. She's popular, and so I think the point is, is she interested in the whole running of government and all that type of stuff, or is she just there to? Because
so it would probably be a fairly technocratic kind of government.
You would think so. You'd think it'd be left in the hands of the advisors, but who knows? Or maybe it's a lot of it might come from Barack Obama. Well, the push of what he would do. So, but yeah, it's a tough one. And Newsom, who's your other main one, is again a bit of an enigma in terms of what you're doing. You would have to think running. If it was a switch late, so how would this happen? Is that Biden could get all the nominations and then get to the party conference and decide in sort of, I think it's August, September, and then decide not to run and basically anoint a successor. And so if that was the case, you would think it'd be pretty similar to a Biden presidency in terms of these are the same types of policies and stuff. But could be a surprise.
Yeah, well, who would do that? Well, what, Gary Newsom? Is it?
Yeah, there's Newsom, and then there was the other one was the other one's Dean Phillips, who's a bit more of a socialist, I think you'd probably say, in terms of stuff like that. But he's a long outsider to make it. So I think Michelle Obama's odds are much higher than Gavin Newsom.
What about Kamala? Do we give her no chance?
Kamala's there as well. Yeah, sorry, that's right. She is in there. Yeah. She hasn't got. Well, she's below Nikki on most measures.
Right.
Caesar's, as an example, isn't even taking bets on Kamala. So, whereas they're taking bets on Dean Phillips. So, yeah. Anyway, right. But so who knows? So I think though as well from Kamala, you would be basically getting the Biden policies without.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So yes, so net effect for that is, I guess the bigger the push for the Democrats, the bigger the victory for the Democrats, then I guess you're talking about seeing healthcare as probably being your biggest issue. I guess the question, our question for the week, and one I'll sort of put to you, Dave, is what's the most underrated policy that's sort of election dependent, that in terms of possibly geopolitical as much as
well, what do you mean by underrated?
Well, what haven't we discussed that's going to come? Or what are people not discussing that's actually going to be the biggest effect of either Trump getting in, or Trump or an acolyte getting in versus somebody else?
Gee, well, I mean, as I've said, I think all of them will be. It's a good election to win, I think. Look, maybe the border is a big one. The border with Mexico, like Trump would get in and very seriously crunch the border for people and even goods potentially. Then his policies would become much more inflationary than even his proposed tariff, because you'd be locking cheap labour out and basically a lot of the Chinese goods that have been knocked onto the head by the first round of tariffs or other measures are still coming in via Mexico. So if he were to really become bellicose about the Mexican border, then it's plausible you could overheat the US.
Yeah, so in terms of wage growth and then needing to raise rates, yep.
Yeah, and goods prices. So, I mean, you'd have a soaring US dollar and, the Fed being forced back in, maybe one possible scenario. But again, I do think it's going to be a good election to win.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's more likely that
it'd be hard to stuff up the next time, I think.
Yeah, and as you said, it's more likely the border stuff is similar to what happened last time, which is big on symbols and low on actual changes. Yeah, so we'll change things at the margin, but it's not a dramatic change. Yeah. Well, and then the other issue obviously is this is a comment for people to jump in and put your comments in the chat. But yeah, the other one obviously is whether the whole US international alliance starts to crumble and go away. That sort of feels like a important, but again, it's hard to say how much of this is bluster and how much of this is real, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I mean, yeah, it's nerve-wracking stuff. Anyway.
Yeah. Right. Well, we might leave it at that. So, relatively quick one this week. If you want anything more,
I suppose we should just quickly touch on whether any of it affects Australia.
Yes. Yep.
Probably not. Like, I don't think Trump would walk away from AUKUS. He might demand an extra $100 billion for it, but probably wouldn't walk away. Both parties are very, very bellicose on China anyway. To the extent that Trump would continue to dismantle sort of multilateral politics, it would be more negative. And then I suppose there has to be a risk that Trump would tear up AUKUS, and then that would obviously throw the cards in the air for Australians vis-a-vis ANZUS as well, and how much we could trust our great and powerful friend. So, and if Trump turns out to be sort of dictatorial, then the gap between a liberal America and an illiberal China sort of narrows, and the rationale for throwing in with the US becomes more complicated anyway for Australians if Trump starts to look like an emperor. God, dear God, anyway. Let's hope we don't get there.
Yes. On that happy note, you need more from Nucleus, nucleuswealth.com/content. Leave a guest or a topic suggestion on there. Social media, we've got all the links up on screen there. We're on most major and minor podcast platforms. Love to hear from you. So yeah, drop in some comments, and we will be seeing everyone next week, Thursdays at 12:30 Sydney/Melbourne time.